Welcome to Calgary Conversations, a podcast of the City of Calgary where we aim to have frank conversations with city leaders about the issues and topics impacting Calgarians.
Please stand behind the yellow line.
My name is Jose Rodriguez. I am the leader of Media Relations and Employee Communications at the City, and I'm happy to be your host. Welcome back to Calgary Conversations, and today we're thrilled to have the Calgary Fire Department's Public Information Officer, Alex Kwan, with us. Alex, welcome.
Thanks, Jose. How are you?
I'm trying my hardest.
All right on.
So I guess first and foremost, what is a Public Information Officer?
So mainly it's like the official spokesperson of the fire department to just provide timely and concise information to the media about what's happening with an incident, as well as looking into a lot of the other parts that kind of attach to that. But primarily it is the spokesperson for the fire department.
So now we had a spokesperson for over a decade in Carol Henke. Shout out to Carol, who did a pretty amazing job. Some pretty big shoes to fill for you. What are your thoughts on taking over that role, becoming the face of Calgary Fire?
I think it's a tremendous honor. Carol's done a phenomenal job, and had in my previous role in community safety, I was able to shadow her for certain events, and she let me build up some, experience doing some of our water safety information. But just to see, her relationship with the media was something that I really value and want to emulate that same thing. I'm hoping also as well to, grow some different areas that, where the landscape was 12 years ago for her is different than what it is now. But really just honor the type of person that she is and the relationship that she had with a lot of people.
And we're fortunate we have some very decent media and some very fair media here in our city. So what made you decide to take on this role?
It seemed like an interesting challenge. Definitely, my last role kind of felt like I was doing a lot of different things. It would just be more of the same thing. So this was a challenge, more public facing, getting the experience to do more of the public speaking, being on camera was something that I didn't realize not everyone's good at. As I applied for this, more and more people told me I'll never do that kind of job. So I think that in itself was a nice challenge. I enjoy the connection that I always made with people. So I'm hoping to leverage this and to do more of that on a larger scale. Whereas in the past, most of my presentations were either to smaller groups of firefighters or crews, and then more public engagement and community safety where I did presentations. But I would connect with 30 people at a time. So I'm hoping that, to use those same skills, but grow it on a bigger scale.
Now, word on the street is that your, quest to always communicate has got you also learning American Sign Language. Is that right?
Learning some, yeah.
What made you want to do that?
It's definitely something where, when I looked at our previous program in terms of the outreach that we provide to the public, for a long, long time, we've been messaging how important smoke alarms are. And then realizing that smoke alarms work on solely an audible alarm and that not everybody could hear that. That was something that I realized that I'm well, we need to fill that gap. And if I'm in the public and I need to explain to somebody what device they need safely in their home, I should have an answer for that. So if somebody doesn't hear the smoke alarm for whatever reason, I have to have a better answer than you need to have a different device and then walk away. So that's where I kind of pursued it further to look at what are the technologies, reaching out to find, subject matter experts or agencies in the public. And that led me to Deaf and Hear Alberta. And then through that relationship, I learned more and more. And then just the value that it would have that, I could get a translator to do stuff. But they told me that just the fact that if I can spell my name to somebody in ASL, that's a huge connection that people will now, it shows that I'm trying. And they really will find that super helpful and engaging. So that just led down that path. And I realized, learning how to spell my name is one step, but if I could do more, then why not learn more and do more?
So I saw you signing what I assume was your name,
That's
right?
Correct.
Could you sign your name for us?
So the ALEX, right? So just the very basic thing you would learn from anything is, hi, my name is, and then spell your name. And then, how are you? And that's just how impactful that was. And, learning more and more and being able to connect with people and actually have a basic conversation where I was so proud at an event where it was I think a 10-year-old boy came up to me and he pointed at me and said, "You police officer." And I was like, no, I'm a firefighter. And I thought that was an important distinction, an important thing to say first, but just to have that kind of moment and connection where to normalize it to this kid that he can come up to a uniformed member of the fire department and, speak his first language and I can answer him back. And that's such an important moment for me and want to continue to build on that.
That is wickedly impressive. Thank you, Alex. So now back to the meat and potatoes of what you do, which is life safety.
Yes.
For the most part. We're getting near the end of water season, river season. But you folks have been pretty busy this year. Can you tell us what's happened along the river this year?
This year's been a really interesting year. When we looked at our stats from that January to June window, we were on a trajectory to do almost double the rescues that we did. So last summer, though, we did about 72 swift water rescues in the month of July alone. And then this year we're at 30. So we really saw that, once the storms came in and a lot more rain, it dropped off significantly. But then in the last few days when we've had the warmer weather, we've been getting repeatedly swift water rescues on all those different days. So it's been an unusual year that way, but definitely, making sure people aren't wearing their ankle leashes on the river. That's something we've been campaigning
on the paddle boards.
On the paddle boards, that's correct. Because we've had a couple fatality water rescues related to that. And just looking at the way we can do the prevention education the same way that we do for fire rescues and all the fire prevention is making sure we're also doing that for drowning prevention and water safety education.
What are you seeing on the river? Like what's the most common cause of people needing fire help?
What we generally see is when people get dumped out of their watercrafts, whatever it is. So there's a couple different reasons that might happen. If they don't have a suitable watercraft and it deflates on them unexpectedly, they hit an obstacle of some kind. So whether that's a bridge pillar or, branches, what we've seen with the heavy rainfall is the water levels have changed quite a bit. So some of the hazards that would normally be exposed on the surface are now below the water. So when someone's navigating and unsure where to go, then they end up hitting one of those and dumping everybody over the watercraft. And I think a lot of people don't realize how cold the water is. So in that kind of shock moment, everybody kind of becomes a non-swimmer of some kind, or the current's pushing them. So trying to get to safety and puts a lot of people in panic. So our crews, regularly patrol, but we get out there as quick as possible to help people. But it comes down to people planning their trip and making sure they know where they're going and where they're planning to be, have all this proper safety equipment with them. But again, that's kind of the most common thing that we see is that suddenly everyone gets dumped out. If you have 4 people, you're going in 4 different directions, right? And just that moment, the panic that sets in.
So if you had advice for folks heading out to the river, what do you think is the most important thing they should know?
First step is making sure they have a plan. So looking at the weather and water conditions to make sure it's safe to go out there. If it's thunderstorms like we've been having almost every day, that if your trip suddenly, the clouds roll in and there's a thunderstorm, it's very, very unsafe to be on the water. So you have to have a plan to know where to get out instead. Having the proper type of watercraft for the number of people that you have, having all the safety equipment. So everyone has to wear their own life jacket or PFD, should have a whistle on it. They should have a boat safety kit, which will have a rope in it and the bailing bucket and some other safety equipment that way, as well as having a paddle so they can steer their watercraft. And then making sure, they kind of know the abilities of everybody. Sometimes what we'll see is if you have someone with a really high advanced skill set with somebody that's brand new, the person that's brand new may be uncomfortable going into a different environment because they're not sure what to do and haven't practiced it. Or, if you fall out of the boat to be rescued, or if the other person somehow falls out of the boat and being unsure how to rescue them. So that's just where, having that conversation and making sure if suddenly, more people show up, you need to, the Jaws line, get a bigger boat. You get a bigger boat to have, if you have more people. So
nice. So I guess there's a lesson there in that, don't overestimate your ability or underestimate Mother Nature.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes.
It's, and I guess maybe we should say when it comes to alcohol, marijuana, those sorts of things, when you're on a boat, that is zero tolerance.
Zero tolerance. Yeah. We do a lot, every the messaging that we do with the police, police will come out and do all their message all those elements, but they've said that the impairment on the river is the same as on the roadways. So exactly the same laws apply. And that's where, there's a high correlation if somebody is drinking and on the water, that tends to be a lot of things go wrong for them. So that's where, it's the same rules, same laws.
You spend a lot of time out of the water as well. So
Yes.
Can you maybe talk to us a little bit about what you're seeing for trends in 2025 when it comes to the Calgary Fire Department?
There's lots of different things that have been happening lately. I mean, we've had a lot more extreme weather. So then we're seeing that heavy rainfall, the lightning storm. So, in the past 24 hours, there was a potential lightning strike that caused a fire on someone's deck. So a lot of external fires, whether, the most common cause of external fires is improper disposal of smoking material. So that's something that could be prevented, whereas something like lightning, that's not going to be something we have control over. Outdoor fire pits, we've seen a little bit of a drop just because of the rainy weather. But once people are doing that, there's a whole bunch of bylaws around that. So being mindful of how they have it, should be at least 2 meters away from their home. As people start getting out camping as well. Definitely with children, we want to make sure that if they're learning how to safely start a fire with matches and lighters, there's an adult supervising them. They have a way to properly put it out, and make sure that's reinforced that the kids aren't going to play with matches and lighters on their own and, just start lighting different things on fire. So that's an important one as more people get outside. And then I think it's less about the home, but when people are traveling, if they have, trailers or RVs of any kind, that making sure they have smoke alarms and CO alarms in those units as well. Most people have been pretty good about their homes of making sure, they have their working smoke alarms. They test it once a month, replace any replaceable batteries once a year, and replace the unit every 10 years. But again, now when they go traveling, the last thing they think about, and if they have any furnaces in their units or their trailers, CO alarms are very, very important. It's a very small space, and it's super critical that those life-saving devices are there as well.
So basically what I heard is don't let the kids audition for Survivor in your backyard, right? Like don't let them make their own fires unsupervised.
Yes, that'd be a good summary. Yeah.
One of the ones I'm going for. What are you seeing in the way of calls? I know that we had, for a while, there were a lot of overdose calls that our fire department was involved in. What's the trending on the calls that the fire department's seeing? So
the overall numbers, while, a couple of years ago, we were doing over 90,000 incidents a year. We're now in last year was in the 80,000. So it did change some of the overall call volume, but we are still going to a predominantly medical responses of different kinds, so which includes overdoses. We reactivated our medical response units so they can respond to those type of incidents. And it's definitely something that, we see as an important response to provide to the city, right? That as we have our ambulances on a different deploying model to a different level of government, how they respond, that they're showing there's a gap, that potentially there's times where an ambulance is not available for a long period of time. And if we can go and provide that critical life safety intervention, then we should go do that. We have a responsibility to do that sort of thing. We're seeing a lot of different types of, fires as well, right? That's always the core cause of why we're here. But I think that accounts for about 25% of the time that we see fire and fire investigation calls. And then, after there's any type of major weather storm or major events, we also see a lot of alarm bells. So sometimes that is triggered because something faulty happened in the electrical. We always treat it as real. Sometimes it also leads into floods, or there actually is a fire. So it could be anything when we show up. And that's just where our crews are always trained, ready to go. And we show up and figure out what's going on and go and solve the problem.
I heard that Calgary Fire's got a big anniversary or a birthday or something coming up. Can you talk about that?
That's right. The fire department was established on August 24th, or is it 25th? 1885. So we're coming up on our 140th anniversary. Wow. So it's a pretty big deal for the fire department. A lot of history. Mm-hmm. It was a really exciting time to be a part of the department.
Yeah, well, Cappy Smart would be proud he made it this far, right?
I think Cappy Smart was the longest serving. Although I think Chief Dongworth's time in the fire service, it was probably just as long.
Really?
Combining his time in the UK as well.
Oh wow!
So I think he said this to the recruit grad. He's at 49 years in the fire service.
Wow.
So.
Wow.
Yeah, very amazing.
So 140 years is a long time, and things change over time. Can you talk maybe a little bit about the evolution of the Calgary Fire Department?
Yeah, there's definitely been a lot of changes over the last 140 years. Some of our we have 43 fire stations across the city, and we're seeing, the replacement of some of those stations, because when I got on, some of them were built in the 70s and 80s, and, there's unknown smells coming from different areas or whatever it is. So to maintain our readiness is to make sure that, we replace those stations. It's been an interesting piece is just where Calgary is situated, right? As we know, the confluence in the Bow and Elbow River, and just how much urban sprawl that we have. When we compare ourselves to other fire departments, say somewhere like Toronto or Vancouver, like while they have a higher population, and their fire service, like Toronto's 4 times the size of ours, but they respond to a smaller geographical area. They have a lot more high rises. So, the way they deploy is very different. Whereas for Calgary, as we continue to grow, we have the fire stations that keep expanding farther and farther out. So just, trying to maintain all of that coverage. In this budget cycle, we'll be adding 250 firefighters. And that's something I did spend some time in our training academy and seeing fresh new recruits and doing all the training, taking people that have really never been a firefighter before and teaching them everything they need to know to be successful.
Now, we also have Camp Courage, and we have Indigenous training. Can you talk about those a little bit?
That's right. So our department's done a lot more outreach, a lot of work through our recruitment division to make sure that we're doing, just showcasing to people what a firefighter does. I think that's something that we've seen across the board for lots of different communities, as well as like newcomers to Canada or new Canadians, that there may not be an equivalent to the fire department from wherever they're from, or there's other ones where maybe firefighters aren't held in high regard, or, when we show up in this uniform and people don't really understand what we're doing there. And we see it a lot on medical calls as well. So this is all part of the different outreach to make sure that people are aware that, firefighters are there to help you. And it's a good job, and we're good people that want to help and engage with the community. So those camps like the Camp Courage is girls. Basically, I oversimplify to call it girls camp, but it's something that's been running for a couple of years now, just showcasing different women what the emergency responders do, because it's joint with AHS and CPS, so they spend a couple days with each agency. I think back to a conversation I had with our previous recruitment team, and they said that going to somewhere like the women's show, there'd be a lineup at the police booth and nobody at the fire booth. So they decided to start talking to everybody in line to say, like, why aren't you coming? Like, fundamentally our jobs aren't that different. And they said a lot of women actually self-excluded themselves from fire because they assumed that you had to be more fit or stronger for any of the equipment. So doing things like Camp Courage, having our information sessions where people can come and put hands on the different gear and equipment, because unless you know somebody in the fire service, you can't really just go somewhere and put on fire gear and see how heavy it is or what that feels like. So that's part of the information sessions that we do, that people are able to come and see how heavy that equipment is, what would it be like to drag somebody out of a building, again, a safe way, just to get an exposure to it. And that's where those camps are really, really good, as well as, as you said, the Indigenous camp. That's something that's grown each year. And I think they just doubled the numbers in the intake this last year. And again, it's a couple days where participants were able to come and in that camp actually drag hose lines around, wear the fire equipment, spray fire hoses, and just really learn what we actually do. And that's inspired a lot of people, that a number of people from that camp have applied and are currently in our process.
So let's pretend I was way younger and way more fit and I wanted to be a firefighter. What would I do?
Really, the starting point is we have everything posted on our website. It's calgary.ca CFDYYC. It takes you directly to the recruitment page. Basically goes through all the different steps there. So definitely the first ones is looking for when there's any information sessions. So we usually run those right before an intake. So once a year for 30 days is when the process opens up and people can apply online. But before that step, going to information sessions allows people to ask questions to the recruitment team, get an overview what the entire process is and what all the requirements are. Because there's a number of minimum requirements that people have to have. So that'd be like being 18 years old, having their high school, their GED, able to work in Canada, those kind of requirements. Further into the process, before they can actually get a job offer, that's when they would have to do something like get their Class 3 license, advanced first aid certificates. So somebody can apply without having those. And once they're in the process and they move along, then they have time to also kind of do these at the same time, get their other credentials in. Right now, what we run through the year through our recruitment team is our Run with a Recruiter program. It's something that, from my understanding, they borrowed from the police because they saw how successful it was. But basically, right now it's a bi-weekly workout class that people can sign up for through Eventbrite. And the participants can come out and do a workout with firefighters and the recruitment officers. So actually get a better feel of what it actually, the physical demands of the job are. A lot of times people will train a certain way and they kind of fall into their habits of, a distance runner is going to always run. And then, a bodybuilder is always going to lift. But firefighting requires more of a combination of those skills. You have to be strong enough to lift different pieces of equipment, but then you have to have the endurance to do it repetitively, because we show up on scene, we don't know how many people are inside the house, so you better be ready to drag like 10 people out. You can't just do it once. So those are really, really important steps. But I think one of the overviews that we have for fire is that we're looking for people that just care about other people. We're here for the community and the well-being, and the whole foundation of what we do is to help others. So if somebody's really, really fit, but they really don't care about other people, that's not good enough, right? We can train somebody to be fit. We can give people those tools, but that fundamental part about caring about other people is just really what we're looking for.
Thank you for all the work you and the women and men of the fire department do. It really is impressive. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Yeah, I just want to talk a little bit about lithium-ion battery safety. That's something that we're starting to see a bigger trend on, and it's actually going to be the theme of Fire Prevention Week, which happens the week of October 9th every year. It dates all the way back to the Great Chicago Fire that happened, and it is a fire that burned over 2 or 3 days, and that's where October 9th was picked from the National Fire Protection Association. And so pretty much internationally, that's the week, for fire safety that everybody observes. So with lithium-ion batteries, what we're starting to see a lot more is when people overcharge these devices. So if you look at like e-scooters or e-bikes, but in particular, so anytime you have a bigger size battery, the bigger it is, the bigger fuel load or fire hazard that it is. So a lot of things that people can do to be safe is to make sure when they charge these devices, they charge it during daytime hours or when they're awake. There's a less likelihood that you're going to overcharge it overnight, because if you fall asleep, you're not going to hear it, smell it, recognize anything is wrong. Making sure as well that you read any of the manufacturer's recommendations on proper charging. Some of the earlier generations ones had higher chances of overheating, and depending where somebody lives. So if you look at somebody living, say, in an apartment building, and you had an e-scooter, you're not going to track it all the way through your whole unit. So you're going to leave it by the door. Now, if a fire starts, you cut off your only egress out of that unit. So there's just different considerations people need to have. A lot of different devices will have these batteries in them. So again, just safe charging practices, making sure keeping them away from any soft materials that can catch on fire. So that's where, say we have our phones, laptops, tablets, charging those on hard, flat surfaces, as opposed to leaving it on the sofa or couch or under mattresses, blankets, and pillows. That can be a big fire hazard as well that way. We have more and more electronic devices that in our homes and everywhere, and just, again, something to pay attention to reduce our chances of having any fires related to that.
So in a perfect world, we'd never see you, but we're always glad you're there for us. How's that?
That's well put. Yeah, thank you. Always happy to see people and make sure it's a non-emergency setting, right?
Well, thank you for taking the time to be with me today.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for joining us today. As always, we value your feedback, so please reach out to us at calgaryconversations@calgary.ca and tell us what topics you'd like covered and questions you'd like answered. Until next time, be kind to yourselves, be kind to each other, and if you see someone without a smile today, give them yours. Take care.